Are you not sure whether you should use a wildcard chip in Gameweek 7 or not? Watch this video till the end to find that answer for your team. Now guys, before you press that wildcard button, I think it's very important to ask yourself a few questions. I think first you should check how happy you are with your overall team, with certain picks in your team, and if you want to replace them, how many transfers will it take to replace those players? So I think it's very important to understand whether you are happy with your team, happy with your players, and how many you want to retain them. Second, I think it's also important to check if you want to do some shifting in terms of a team structure, in terms of shifting funds. Maybe you have a lot of money invested in defense, and now considering that defense is not doing that well, do you want to shift that in midfield, or do you want to take that money into attack? And how many transfers again is that going to take you? I think it's very important consideration for your own FPL team. Then you also have to understand if you're playing 3 up top, maybe you're playing an additional midfielder, maybe you are also playing an additional defender. Let's say if you want to buy a certain defender and you want to play that defender in your team. So do you want to do that? How many transfers again would that take? Also, I think a lot of FPL managers right now have doubled up, even tripled up on teams like Liverpool and Arsenal. And considering that both teams have trickier fixtures and the likes of Liverpool not keeping a lot of clean sheets, guys, we are kind of thinking of shifting from the likes of Trent, Salah, even Luis Diaz. And Arsenal again, it was the first trickier test against Man United, who have definitely improved over the past few game weeks. And now with Arsenal also having a trickier run of fixtures, I think there is a case to be made for selling a few Arsenal players. So again, how many do you have? How many do you want to sell? Based on that conversations, I think there could be a wildcard that could be used for your own FPL team. I think it's very team dependent. It depends on what your team is right now and what direction would you want to take. And accordingly, I think you should take that call. Now, if you are on a wildcard or if you're targeting a wildcard, I think there are a few teams that you can look at. Now, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of us have double ups and triple ups from Liverpool and Arsenal, and we want to replace those players. So which kind of players to go for? I think there are a couple of teams who have a really good run of fixtures. The upcoming run of fixtures looks really, really good. We have Newcastle who have decent fixtures. Newcastle are not really conceding a lot of goals. Yes, they are conceding a lot of shots, because of which someone like a Pope is kind of benefiting. But I think they are a decent defense, much improved from the early parts of last season. I think that's definitely one team to target. There are a couple of attackers as well that we can target, and we'll talk about them a little later in the video. Then we also have the likes of Chelsea. I know it'll be very weird to kind of see Chelsea's name considering that they lost to Dinamo Zagreb in the Champions League group stage game. So I think, yes, I also am not very convinced with Chelsea, but the fixtures are really, really good, guys. From a defensive point of view, they look a lot better. I know in attack, Chelsea has kind of struggled, and we'll talk about it when we're talking about the draft, but definitely they have decent fixtures, and if they want to kind of check their run or get on a good run, get in some form, I think this is a good run that they can target. And I think they have to win games. Otherwise, it's going to be a very, very tough season for Chelsea. So I think Chelsea is also one good team to target. Man United have decent fixtures in the short term. They have definitely improved over the past few game weeks. We know that they can keep low scoring games and they can keep clean sheets. Maybe again, target one of the defenders. Maybe we can also target one of the attackers. We'll talk about it when we talk about the drafts. But I think Man United also is a decent team to look at. Yes, I still want to be a little bit cautious when I talk about United, because I think we need to see a little bit more from them, especially in attack. But I think they're still a decent team to target. Now, we also have West Ham, and West Ham have had very tough fixtures in the beginning, guys. Of course, they've also not looked that great even in the slightly easier fixtures, but I still feel West Ham now, considering that the run is pretty good over the next 4 or 5 game weeks, I think they're definitely one team that we can look at. So if you're looking at kind of punting on certain players, maybe punting on a certain attacker, etc., I think West Ham is a decent team to go for. Now, there's one more team that has a really, really good run of fixtures, but they're bottom in the league right now, guys. They aren't really playing well. And Brendan Rodgers is probably about to get sacked. Maybe he gets sacked by the time you watch this video. It's Leicester City, guys. The fixtures are really, really good. I think a lot of people were earmarking this run of fixtures, especially for someone like a Maddison, even other players, for example, as well. But I think right now it's very tricky to kind of go towards Leicester. Maybe with Rodgers sacked, maybe with the new manager coming in, there might be a certain new manager bounce that we might take advantage of. But again, I've not listed them here, though the fixtures are really good. And again, if you want to punt on a certain player, of course, we'll talk about it. You can do that. But I think these are teams that you can look at getting into your FPL team from game week 7, 8 or even 9, because all of these have decent fixtures and there are some really interesting options to go for from these teams. Now talking about the first wildcard draft for game week 7 here guys, we've gone for Nick Pope in goal. As I mentioned earlier, Newcastle are conceding a lot of shots. Pope is making a lot of saves, so it's pretty good from a saves point potential. It's also good if Newcastle keep a clean sheet, because if they do, I think Pope is definitely going to be in the bonus, especially if it's going to be a low scoring sort of a game where Newcastle probably don't win by a lot, or maybe it's a 0-0 sort of a draw. I still feel Pope has better potential at the moment, and if you're wildcarding, you have this opportunity, you have this advantage to maybe move from a Sanchez, maybe even move from a Ramsdale or a Raya, who we've all seen are conceding goals. Yes, Arsenal's probably not conceding as many goals as a Brighton right now, but I think there is not a lot of potential for saves in Ramsdale. Of course, that could change. Maybe we see something else over the next few weeks, but especially if you're going on a wildcard, I think Pope is the one to go for. Ramsdale is decent for clean sheets, but Arsenal aren't really conceding a lot of shots, and because of that, he's also not making a lot of saves. So I think going for Pope is pretty good. The second keeper is a 4 million keeper, because we're not going to rotate keepers here. In terms of our defense, guys, we've retained Cancelo, who still looks pretty decent. I mean, he had a great Champions League game. I think he still is worth holding. There is a lot of value. Now with Walker also maybe injured, I think there are chances that we might not be able to get that value defender. Of course, we can go towards the Gomez, guys, maybe towards a Diaz as well if we want to save some money. But I definitely feel that Cancelo is worth getting into your team, or worth holding if you already have him, guys. Now, we also have Reece James, and Chelsea hasn't really looked that great in defense. They also lost in the Champions League. They conceded 1 goal. But Reece James is in there because of his attacking potential. I still feel there is a lot of attacking potential in there, guys. And if it's a big if, but again, if he plays in that right wing back position, I think there's a lot of potential for James to get attacking returns. Yes, I'm not very convinced in terms of Chelsea getting clean sheets, but again, the fixtures are decent. The upcoming games are quite good from a defensive point of view, and if Tuchel can make it a little tighter at the back, I think James with that additional clean sheet points, I think that could be really, really good. You can of course go for a Chilwell as well. I mean, yes, there is an option, but I personally feel that Chilwell and Cucurella would be rotated a lot, considering that we now have Champions League games as well. So I think that's the reason I'm kind of not going there. And Reece James is kind of different when you talk about the attacking threat, about what he can, kind of contribute on the pitch. I think it's a lot better as an FPL pick, guys. Now we also have Trent, and I know a lot of people might not like this particular player or this particular transfer in the FPL team or in your FPL team, but I think Trent is definitely worth holding, still worth holding, guys. We've seen that he has done decently when we talk about attacking threat. Of course, it's not translated into attacking returns yet, but again, if you want to transfer him out, maybe go for somebody like a Trippier, maybe somebody from Arsenal as well. I mean, if you're trying to save some money, so you have options in Saliba, etc. as well. But again, I think there's still merit in holding Trent. At least we hold him for a couple of weeks on this wildcard draft as well, and then we again reassess. If he again looks really bad, he's not doing anything, Liverpool are struggling in defense and they're not keeping clean sheets, of course, he's at that price point where we can easily transfer him out for a different player. So I think there is merit and there's value in keeping Trent, still keeping Trent in your FPL team. Then we have Dalot, guys, and this is an interesting one because Man United have looked a lot better in defense. I would still not say that they're the best defense in the league all of a sudden, but definitely there's a lot of improvement in the United defense, guys. Diogo Dalot, we know that he's attacking. Of course, we always talk about his attacking threat, his underlying stats, etc. haven't looked that great. I mean, they generally aren't that great, but he can still get you an assist maybe. I'm not very sure about his goal threat, but again, if United keep clean sheets, I think at 4.5 million, there could be a great option in Diogo Dalot, guys. There's Malacia as well, who I think is 4.4 million at the moment. So if you're trying to save some additional money here, maybe you can go for him as well. I think both of them are pretty nailed in the Premier League team, in the Premier League 11 for Man United. And I think both of them are really, really good options. Then coming to the midfield, guys, we have Martinelli, who's the only Arsenal player in the team right now. I mean, it just feels weird that so many of us had so many players from Arsenal in the beginning of the season, guys, and now we've kind of going away from them. But I think there is, again, a reason for doing that. And I think Martinelli at that value is still a great option to go for. Yes, Arsenal has some tricky fixtures, but I think they can still score goals. And I think Martinelli, I mean, is already a lot involved in the Arsenal attack. We saw his goal was ruled out as well against Man United, and that probably would have been a different game. But I think Martinelli at that price point brings a lot to the Arsenal attack. I don't think so his place is under threat or anything, guys. Yes, there could be some limited minutes. I mean, of course, there's always a chance of a substitution considering that we have the 5 substitution rule now, but I think Martinelli is still a great option to go for. We also have Sterling, guys. If you see this draft, there is no more Salah, and I've made a draft with no more Salah and one with Salah, but I think there is again potential to do a lot more if you don't have Salah in your team, guys. Salah, we know that he is a great FPL player. He's a great player for Liverpool as well. He's been absolutely crazy over the past few years. But right now, I think considering what Liverpool are going through, it's probably a rough patch. Salah has not been that great. I mean, he's playing a lot wider. He's not involved. Yes, his underlying stats are still quite okay. But at that price point, guys, at 13 million, I expect a lot more from a premium asset. So that's my worry here. I don't think so he's a bad pick all of a sudden, but I just feel considering that he costs so much money, I mean, there is a lot that can be done here. So we've gone for Sterling. Again, Sterling from Chelsea. You might think that, Chelsea aren't really playing great, but I think Sterling is probably one of the standout options from Chelsea at the moment. I think he's the one to kind of go towards in attack, considering that we've not seen enough of Aubameyang in Chelsea in the Premier League. I think if Chelsea are going to get goals, it's probably going to be through Sterling. He's looked okay. It also kind of depends on what position he plays with Aubameyang. It looks like Aubameyang might play in a central role and Sterling might shift towards the left side, and that may benefit him. Again, only time will tell us that, but I still feel Sterling, considering those fixtures, guys, I mean, yes, I know that those fixtures are slightly better from a defensive point of view, but I think Sterling could be a great option. Then we also have Zaha, guys. Zaha has decent fixtures. I mean, they're kind of mixed, but if we are targeting a Crystal Palace player, guys, I think it has to be Wilfried Zaha. He's the standout option in that Palace team. He makes that attack going, and I think in that price point, he is a decent option to go for. He's also not risky because he's nailed most of the times. I mean, he's not going to get benched. Yes, again, with the substitution rule, there might be chances of him coming off a little earlier, but I still feel Zaha is a great option to go for. Then you also have Luis Diaz, guys, and again, it's a slightly controversial pick here because not a lot of people are going for Diaz. I mean, they're kind of going away from Diaz, to be very honest, on a wildcard draft, and you could absolutely do that. But I think this draft kind of plays a little safer with covering a Liverpool asset, considering that they do well. I think Diaz has done well. I mean, he's been a bit unlucky to not score goals. And if probably all those goals that he hit the post with, I think if those would have gotten in, I think this was a very different conversation. And maybe we were just retaining Diaz from the word go. I still feel there is value and there's a lot of options around as well. So in case if the Diaz pick doesn't work, we can always switch to a Maddison, who again, I know it's Leicester, but Leicester, maybe if Brendan Rodgers is fired, if he's sacked, and if there's a new manager, there might be a new manager bounce as well. And I think Maddison in those fixtures could do well. If I'm looking at a Leicester player, I think it has to be Maddison. He's a standout option. I mean, he has a great free kick in him. He can score goals. He can provide assists as well. So there are options with the Maddison. In case if you are kind of looking towards a punting category, guys, then you also have Bowen from West Ham. I mean, yes, he's not done anything so far. I mean, no returns in 6 games so far. So that's a bit concerning. But I feel, again, that price category, he's also a definitely valid option to go for, considering that West Ham have decent fixtures now. Then in terms of the 5th midfielder, guys, we've gone for Andres Pereira. He's the best value midfielder in the game right now. I mean, of course, I bought him at 4.5 million, but even if you buy him right now, guys, I mean, he's great value. He is that creative engine in that Fulham team. And if Mitrovic is going to score all those goals, I think Pereira is going to be providing a lot of assists. I think there is a lot of value. You can even play him in the easier games as well. So that kind of gives you a potential route to an additional player, which maybe you didn't have last season. I think Pereira is a great option. Then in terms of the attack, guys, we've gone for Mitrovic, Haaland and Toney. I think Haaland, he's definitely one player that you have to have in your team right now, guys. Great captaincy option, is scoring a lot of goals. He scored a brace in the Champions League as well. And I know there's a lot of doubt around his minutes in the Premier League, but I still feel he's a great option to go for, guys. If you are looking for a premium attacker, premium striker, I think it has to be Haaland. I still rate Haaland a little bit more than Harry Kane right now. I know that Harry Kane might play more minutes, but the way Haaland has adapted, the way Man City has adapted to Haaland's game right now, guys, I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. And I think if you don't have him, there is a chance that you will end up getting scared for most weeks. I think you should definitely have him or get him in your wildcard team at least. And then we have Toney, guys, who scored a great hat-trick last time around. And seeing that hat-trick, guys, was absolutely crazy. And I think, again, you could possibly make a case for an Isaac as well. But personally, I have not really seen enough of Isaac at the moment. Yes, he was decent against Liverpool. He was quite good against Liverpool. But again, we've not really seen him. He's a decent player. He's a good player, in fact, to go for. But with Wilson also kind of coming back into the frame, there is a chance, guys, that maybe Isaac gets limited minutes. Maybe Isaac and Wilson can also play together, with Wilson playing centrally and then Isaac maybe drifting down the right side, guys. So there are chances that he might get reduced minutes, and it's because of that and the fact that I personally haven't seen enough of him. I'm not gone for him at the moment. Of course, in that price point, you can always switch a Tony to an Isaac when we see that Isaac is outperforming Tony in terms of FPL potential. But I think Mitrovic is definitely one to have in your team as a second striker at the moment, guys. I think he's in great form. If Fulham are scoring goals, he's definitely at the end of those. I mean, he is the talismanic figure that you would want in your FPL team, guys, and I think he's a great option to go for, and I think there's a lot of potential there. Still, not a lot of people have Mitrovic in their teams, and on a wildcard, you can jump on him a bit earlier. Now, in case if you are not comfortable selling Salah even on a wildcard, I think this is the draft for you. We have Mo Salah in this team. We have retained the likes of Dalot, Cancelo, James and Neco Williams. We also have Pope, so we have a double up in the Newcastle defense. Again, if you're not comfortable with a double up in Newcastle defense, guys, you can possibly look towards a Saliba. You can possibly look towards a Brighton defender as well. I mean, there are different options that you can go for, but I think this combination looks quite decent. We have Martinelli, we have Zaha. Now, instead of Luis Diaz, guys, we've gone here for Rashford. Now, I know a lot of people have already jumped onto Rashford this week. I mean, he is the most transferred in player already by a huge margin. But I'm a little bit skeptical when it comes to Rashford's potential. I mean, we know that he can score goals. We also know that he was missing a lot of chances. I mean, I'm still not there in terms of his overall play, guys. Especially when he's playing in that number 9 role. Yes, he can still run behind high-line defenses, guys, and that is where he gets those goals, by making those runs and taking those shots. And if he can finish those opportunities, I mean, he's a great player to go for. But again, I'm not sure how much of that is going to happen in the upcoming fixtures. Yes, the upcoming fixtures are okay. I mean, the next 3 or 4 look okay. So if you want a short-term option, I think he could be a great option to go for. He's great value, guys. He's playing out of position, guys. He will get big chances, and if he can take those opportunities and score some goals, I think he's a great FPL option to go for. But again, proceed with the word of caution. Look out for news on his injury. I saw in the last match against Arsenal, he was holding his hamstring. In the post-match interview, we didn't hear anything from him. But if he gets a rest in the Europa League, maybe he gets fine. And if we don't hear anything from Ten Hag, guys, I think he could be an option to go for. So I've had him in my team in this wildcard draft, in this one, guys. Then we have Mitrovic, Haaland and Tony, which is the same forward line. So it's not very different. Yes, we don't have Trent, guys, because we've gone for Salah. And because of Salah, we've kind of had to downgrade a Trent to a Trippier here. So if you're okay with that downgrade, if you feel that maybe Salah is still a decent option to go for, I don't see myself captaining Salah for most of the coming game weeks, guys. And that because of that possibility as well, I think there could be better value in spreading that cash elsewhere and maybe going for a different player. Now, again, you could argue that you might want to keep that Salah position or that Salah money in there because you have options like Son, KDB. You might even downgrade to a Bruno Fernandes or a Sterling, and that's a very valid conversation, guys. But personally, I still feel there's better value in spreading that cash all across the pitch, all across the field. You can upgrade your midfield, you can upgrade your defense, and there's a lot of value in that double attack of Mitrovic and Tony, guys. So I think without Salah is my preference in terms of the wildcard draft, guys. But do let me know what you think about these wildcard drafts. Are you wildcarding in Game Week 7? What does your team look like? Let me know in the comments below. So that'll be it from my side for this video, guys. I hope you found this video helpful and useful in setting up your wildcard team, thinking about your draft, and moving forward with Game Week 7 wildcard. Hit like if you enjoyed the video today, guys. Subscribe to the Insanely Football channel as well for more FPL content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in Saners next time.